Alright, I'm back with another hand review, live stream review, where I eviscerate myself. This game had actually one of the tougher lineups, tougher than average. In particular, there were three ACR team pros, Brandon Slide in my direct left, Bet on Drew in the 5 seat, and John Party in the 6 seat, along with Seti and Rob Kerr, and then two players that I've never played with before in the 8 and the 1 seat. But yeah, it ended up being a very fun stream, had a great time, and got a lot of hands to go over. I kind of played with it pretty loose and had a great time. You can see me in the 2 seat if you haven't noticed yet. And let's get right into it. It's been almost a month since this stream happened, and yeah, so I have another one in the works as well. I did play a week from the time of this recording, a week ago. So let's get right into this first hand here. Jacob opens under the gun +1. And I'm in the big blind. This is a 1-2 with a $10 big blind ante, as usual. And it ends up folding all the way to me in the big blind. And I elect to 3-bet with ace-3 offsuit. Definitely not a good idea, but I kind of wanted to attack Jacob and get some action going early on, cultivate an image, and I just felt like he's a little too wide here, and while he's probably calling, like if he's calling King Jack off, he's calling way too wide. That's probably the main reason this is a mistake, but I feel like I could outplay him on later streets. Ace Jack 4 with 2 spades. I don't expect to ever get raised on this board, and if I do, I can easily get away. It's not going to be balanced. So I think going for a small bet makes a lot of sense. I bet 1/3 pot, $70. I'm going to put him in a kind of an awkward spot with gut shots and marginal hands of the sort, but he has a pretty clear call with his hand, King Jack off. Turn Queen is going to improve him to 2-pair lot and improve all the aforementioned gut shots to either a pair or the straight. So it's actually going to be a pretty bad card for me. I decided to check. And when he checks behind, I am pretty much certain I have the best hand here. I mean, he could have a stronger ace, but I don't imagine he checks that back too often, considering the amount of draws that are available. River King is bad for the same reasons that the Queen on the turn was bad, so I just really am done with this hand at this point. And he announces 2-pair. I say, you rivered it. And yeah, he turns it over. Alright, moving on to the next hand. There's a raise from under the gun to 15 from Drew.
Thank you for that super chat, by the way.
The 8 seat, who is an unknown, makes the call. Robert also makes the call on the hijack, and I have ace-queen on the button, definitely going for a 3-bet squeeze here. Obviously, the under the gun open, especially from a good player, is normally going to be strong, but Drew is, in these games, he tends to open up quite a bit wider than and gives a good amount of action, so I don't think he's going to have like the super tight under the gun range that he normally would. So I feel pretty comfortable going for the squeeze here. Drew does end up making the fold. The 8 seat Rumpelstiltskin calls.
Big fan. Don't give me a text. Big fan.
I'll pass on the text on that.
And Robert also makes the call here.
Here we go. Rob Kerr is going to make the call here from Eric's 3-bet. Rob's in there.
So we're going 3 ways to a flop in position. It's Queen Jack 4 with 2 clubs. Overall, of board, I like a lot. A lot of draws available to get value from, and a lot of worse hands that can call a big bet on the flop. So I decide to go for a bet. Looks like 140. Yes, 140. So not that big relative to the pot, but considering this is 3 ways, I think it's definitely one of the bigger side on the bigger side. And Rumpelstiltskin does get out of the way. Makes a good fold with King Jack there. And it's on
He
Rob.
probably had about 6 hands.
Okay, well,
He would have missed a whole lot.
still feeling some stuff, right?
Yeah, they
And
really
spoiler
are.
alert, he
I
ends
just
up
made
going
that
for the
comment,
raise.
earlier, right before you walked
And
in. You know
Rob's
how
a good
lot of
player.
times each game kinda
He's
has
definitely on the tighter side, but I feel like
uh,
he's,
a lot of times they just
you know,
come
he
out
could,
just fire
he
no
has
bank
quite a few
against you,
bluffs,
you know?
very
2 or
obvious
3 all hands in the first
draws like
half
combo
of the game.
draws, ace 10 suited,
This time
king
we
10
had some
suited,
raises,
10
some
9
3
suited,
bets and folds.
jack
Like
X of
no 4
clubs
betting,
is
no,
a
not that
possibility.
many calls. This time we do have
So I definitely don't think he's always super nutted when he raises here. He also can't have queens or jacks. I know he would 3-bet those pre, so he's really only repping 4s and queen jack.
wet board, so I thought he
The
might be
offsuit
able to
combo he
call.
probably doesn't have at full frequency. And we block the queen of hearts, so there's only one combo of queen jack suited left. Unfortunately, so yeah, that's my reasoning for going all in. Obviously, we see he has a set of 4s, and we're basically drawing dead on the flop, and we give him an early double up. But I'm not at all disappointed with my play. I think I played this hand perfectly fine. It's just a cooler that he happened to have it on a board where he's often just gonna have a big draw.
Yeah, it's like, okay, see what tonight's gonna be like.
Eric's got his, he's already got a flat Rumpelstiltskin.
All right, moving on to the next hand. Rob opens under the gun +2 to $30, and I have queens in the hijack, and I make it 100.
What up, JT? OG, triple OG.
I believe there was a straddle to $10. Maybe it was 5. Looks like it was 5 from the 7 seat. Anyway, Drew is in the small blind with the 9s here. He's thinking for a while, and in the moment, I'm just very curious what he has.
This is the third or
Makes the
fourth
call.
time Eric's 3-bet.
You can hear the announcers saying that this is the 3rd or 4th time I've 3-bet, and yes, I was pretty active, especially in the first hour of this stream, so pretty aggressive image for sure. But anyway, yeah, Drew Cole calls the 3-bet in the small blind. Rob asks how much I have left, and really honestly hoping for a 4-bet from Rob here. Happy to get in with queens, especially with the dead money from Drew. But he does end up making the call. And we go to a flop 3 ways in position. Not particularly deep either. SPR is only a little over 4. I am the effective stack at 1300. And on the king 7-8 rainbow flop, I think my hand is a pretty clear check, like even heads up. Actually, heads up probably this is a C bet. I should probably be C betting a lot of my range on this board. Can still get value from worse, but multi-way, I think it's unlikely I will get called by worse hands.
I don't think he's really thinking about folding.
Turn is a 4 of hearts, bringing in several draws. Most notably the backdoor hearts. I do have the queen of hearts, which I don't like, but for this size, just like 40% pot roughly. I think a little less. I don't think I can fold just yet, especially against Drew, who can definitely give action in these games. River's a 9. I'm not playing. I honestly don't know what I would do against a river bet here. And in case that doesn't give it away, he does decide to check. And I briefly consider a value bet, but I think it's a little bit too thin, considering he bet on the flop into 3 people. Yeah, he does go for the check there. You can see I don't snap check behind. I consider, like I said, I consider going for a value bet, but he bet the flop into 3 people, so I think it's just too thin to go for a bet with queens here. And you can see me check behind, and Drew is very angry as he rivered the set of 9s. Jacob saw his hand in the middle of the hand, or was sweating him, so that's why he was complaining as well. Alright, moving on here. I open +3, it looks like, to $25 with the 6-5 of clubs. It folds to John Party in the small blind with king queen suited.
Oh, the sizing?
Yeah, 150, 185, 2.
And like I said, I have a pretty aggressive image up to this point.
Probably go with half pot, middle and half pot.
So I'm actually surprised to see him go
You
for
can also
just a
just
call
like
here.
you
I'd
can
expect this
easily
to
break-
be
you
a
know, you
3-bet,
whatever
if
you
not
feel.
pure, at
You
least
can
the
go for
majority of the
you know,
time.
overbet that pot.
You know what I mean?
Especially against an aggressive player, is probably opening too wide, as my image seemed to suggest at that time.
But I don't think you can
Anyway, we outflop him here on the 5-5 deuce, the 5 deuce deuce board.
top pair.
Definitely a board I'm going to be c-betting with a lot of my range. I probably can mix big sizing and small sizings. Probably want to go for a bigger sizing in hindsight, just because I have such a massive range advantage on this board, on this flop.
Check back here. There's no way.
The turn 5 is interesting because he shouldn't have too many 5x when he flats from the small blind, but I shouldn't really either. So I think it's a pretty safe card to continue to... Like, obviously it's safe considering my actual hand, but I think it's that my range definitely wants to barrel this card. So I do end up going for the overbet. I overbet 150 into 100. Looking to apply max pressure to pocket pairs and ace highs. Go for max value, but he does end up just folding because he has king high.
Beautiful Lori there in the box.
And I also thought the overbet would continue to cultivate that aggressive image I had at the time. Alright, quickly moving on to the next hand. I open +1 with queen 10 suited, a very reasonable hand for once. And get called by Jacob in +3. I missed. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like Jacob called in +3, Drew called in the hijack, and we're going 3 ways to a flop out of position. King Jack 8 with 2 hearts, an excellent flop for my hand and a great flop for my range, but due to being out of position 3 ways, I'm basically checking range on this flop, although with my, if I, like, not really, it's checking range to, or checking my whole range to protect my range, even though it may seem unintuitive.
Straight flush draw. Yeah,
anyway,
right.
Drew ends up going for the $60 bet. Definitely, it's about 2/3 pot, a little less. And with how strong of a draw I have and how much of a nut advantage I have on this board, I go for the check raise to 210. Probably could have gone even bigger here. But I think 210 is fine. He ends up making the call. And we go to a turn of a 5 of hearts. So I do get there. But I actually check here because I think my range wants to check. And I think I want to have flushes. And I think the ace high flush would probably be a better check here. But I think checking a lot on this turn because he's gonna have way more suited hands than I am, and I think it's like, I don't know, I haven't put this through a solver or anything. Maybe my check is a bad idea, but I thought I'd get tricky with it. Anyway, he checks behind. The river's a brick. And I know that if I didn't have a flush, like if I had a hand like King Jack, I'd definitely go for a big value here. So it's not like I couldn't go for a big value bet without a flush. I certainly could. So even though my bet, I pot it for about 550. It's a little 500 actually. You can see me put the plaque in, but that's just because I didn't have any blacks or enough reds to actually cover the 500. But yeah, like I definitely don't always have flushes, which is my which is why I felt comfortable going for a big size and getting called by a lot worse. Anyway, he has a pretty difficult decision with King 8. I mean, yes, it is 2 pair, but I'm not really going to be value betting much worse here. The main thing he has going for him is he blocks the 2 of the sets, King 8 and or kings and eights, that is.
It's kind of like
So my like,
you see his
I think
profile picture the other day?
from a defensive perspective, he probably just has to make this call
Yeah,
here to
exactly.
avoid getting over bluffed in
Like
this
somebody
spot.
dropped an anvil on his
But
head.
you know, you're really not loving it.
Tell us why you wear a patch.
He does end up talking to me a little bit, and I don't know, like, in case you can't hear, he does say that, you know what, he says, you know what, Eric, I'm going to pay you off because I feel bad for sucking out on you with the nines against the queens.
500.
He's like, he didn't say that obviously verbatim, but he said something along those lines.
Yeah, when you hold
So
on
you
to
can
it,
see him playing with his stack of greens before saying that to me,
Wait, what's he looking at? He's not
and
looking
eventually he
at
does
cards.
put in the money
Looking at Spoder?
I have no idea.
And then figure it out.
after a very, very long tank.
Eric, you know what? I'm gonna call because I sucked out on you with the other hand.
Call.
Oh yo! Man, what a
You're a nice guy.
Well,
Nice guy.
he called.
He did
He's
make the
shown the
call.
bad news.
He explained to him why he was making the call, and he did it.
All right,
So this is
next
one
hand
time
we
said
have here,
plastic is better
we're
than
playing the knit game, the stand-up game, whatever you want to call it. You can see I have the yellow thingy next to my name, which means that I still have my knit button.
But you would
Make a
have-
raise
you might have a
$25
reason
with
for a
king
fight
queen offsuit from +1.
to smoke.
I'm never building a house with you.
No, not that kind of pipe. Like
I know,
Sherlock
I know.
Holmes.
I got
Folds all the way to Rumpelstiltskin in the small blind, who makes the call with in the small blind. I definitely just said that twice, didn't I?
Eric still being active. Took a couple days
And we're going heads up to a flop.
Dixon out of position with
8, Jack 9, rainbow.
Open ender.
2 overs and a gut shot.
He doesn't want to
Ordinarily, this is ordinarily going to be a better flop for the small blinds range than it is for mine, I think. But this is the stand-up game, and I just want to push
overs and the gut shot.
a hand with a decent amount of equity, 2 overs and a gut shot,
Means that he bets $40.
and hopefully just full out ace highs
Small blind.
and smaller pocket pairs that actually are ahead of me right now.
9
So
pairs of board.
when the turn is a 9, I think he definitely has a good amount of 9x. So pretty bad turn to barrel.
Yeah, you can have a 9 there.
River is a 7,
He gets there on the right.
and the board just goes from bad to worse. He
That's a good card.
leads out for 75, and obviously I just have a fold.
I still don't know where he's from, though, Rude.
Moving on to this next hand, I still have my knit button, but it folds to me folds all the way to me in the $10 straddle with 10-4 suited, and Brennan Sly is in the $20 straddle. I decided to get in there. Both of us have our knit buttons, so make a questionable raise with the 10-4 suited, hoping to just take it down. Obviously, he's not going to let me do that. 9-6-3 with 2 hearts. I think this is a better board for him than it is for me normally, but he checks behind, which makes me, which is nice because it pretty much caps him. So I go for a small bet just to kind of see if I can fold out like his absolute whiffs. Unfortunately, he sticks around, so I know if I'm gonna bet river, I have to go for it here. And when the river is an ace, I decide to fire again because I think I have a lot of ace highs in my range. I could even bet ace high for value on the turn. Unfortunately, he clearly has aces in his range too. I was hoping to put pressure on his 6x and 3x and smaller pocket pairs, but obviously he had a much better hand than that.
$900 to save.
Probably messed up at some point in the hand, but
Look at
this is the stand-up game, and I
Look at this.
just wanted to get rid of
Two
my
guys in a straddle.
button.
Have pocket pairs.
And Eric's been very active.
This next hand is again against Brandon, and I think it's the same situation where it folds to us and we're the 2 straddles. So we're playing another heads-up pot where I limp call with 4s.
4s versus jacks.
Flop comes ace, king, queen with 2 clubs.
Horrible flop.
Great board for the pre-flop aggressor. Although when he checks behind, I think he can still have weaker ace-x, king, obviously king-x, queen-x. So I really don't think my fours are good here. I check though just to see if he wants to, like, because I know that if he checks behind on the turn, which he does, it severely caps him. And when the 5 rolls off on the river, I think my 4s are actually a great bluff candidate to try and get better hands to fold. I don't think King X is folding, so that's why I didn't go for a huge size, but I think I can definitely get Queen X to fold for this size, and obviously pocket pairs below the Queen. Gonna have to let it go, as he does with the Jacks here.
Tough board for four.
Worth noting that that we were not playing the stand-up game. The game had already ended at this point. But I think that was a good bluff with the 4s there. All right, getting into this next hand. Drew opens under the gun to 15.
Right. Of course, he's probably in the room. Nor Matt. And then Chris Stiegel says that you and I are two of the best commentators.
Oh man, Steve.
All right, getting into this next hand, Drew opens under the gun to 15.
Love, thank you very much.
And Seti with the ace-deuce of diamonds ships in his 225.
Spending my money. Trying to get me to pay to Uber.
You may be wondering what the hell he's doing on such a short stack. Well, he has like some sort of prop bet going on where he has to buy in for like the minimum, and like something to do with having to buy in for the minimum, like some sort of bankroll challenge involving him that requires him to buy in for the minimum. So he's just kind of goofing around with this here. And I just wake up with queens on the button. Pretty welcome sight. I put in the 4-bet to isolate.
Drew raised it to 15. Seti makes it 222. That's a rather large.
And yeah, he puts in his last $1 that he was leaving behind. And we're off to the races. Let's see the run out.
Yeah, he has 5.
He's got a gut shot.
3 or a diamond.
Oh, we have
There's
9.
a diamond.
I know the 3's coming.
Nope.
I really felt like it was that time.
I was thinking diamond. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh, that was the turn.
Wow.
Sick turn. Ace-deuce diamonds.
Queens are good for Mr. Eric, Mr. Spoder, young Eric.
What's half now?
Eric will not slow down.
All right, getting into the home stretch here. I open up Ace King offsuit from the hijack to $60. I'm pretty sure there's a $20 straddle. Jacob calls on the button, and I know this is going to be a very wide range. Same thing with Drew when he flats in the small blind. I expect him to 3-bet any hands that are particularly strong. Seti also calls in the first straddle, and Rob gets out of the way with the 8-3 off. So we're going 4 ways to a flop, 3rd to act.
Come on, Lori, make it a good one.
King 10 deuce with 2 hearts. Great flop for me. Very weird when Seti leads out. Especially for such a small size. I definitely don't think this is a value hand. I expect him to check to pair better here. So I actually think this is pretty capped, and that's why I decided to go for the raise. I want to attack this because I don't think he's just betting like bullshit. I think he has a good amount of equity when he does this, because there's 3 other people in the hand, or 2 other people that in the hand, that is, besides me. So I don't think he's just spazzing off with like I don't know, ace-9 or something. Any snap calls turns not that good because a lot of those hands that I put him on, like flush draws, get there obviously. But I do hold the king of hearts, which is really nice. Good blocker. So that's why when he checks me, I go for another bet. of 350. Obviously planning to fold to a raise, but when he snap calls, I definitely don't put him on the flush. And when the 5 of spades hits the river, I think for a while about whether to go for a value bet here, but I think I do decide to check. I don't really know about this one. I think it's a close spot. I just couldn't imagine that he would just bet out king queen or king jack on the flop. So I thought going for a value bet would be a little too thin here. Like I didn't put him on a flush because of the way he snap called the turn. I just didn't think he was nutted. But yes, I do end up going for a check, which at the moment I thought it was pretty nitty check, but I think there's some merit to it. And said he's a pretty aggressive player, and I really didn't want to get check raised either. So moving on here, I get ace king again, this time from +3. And I actually decide to flat a raise. I've been experimenting with just flatting ace king instead of 3-betting, especially at a table with some players that are on the aggressive side. I think this is a good idea to mix in some flats here. And also, KDP was one of the tighter players at the table, so that's why I decided to just smooth call his raise to 30 here. And we do see the 3-bet squeeze from the button. Drew makes it 115.
Did you go out there and tell him to kick up the action? Look at Seti. Seti's making a bridge.
And it folds all the way back to KDP. He makes the fold, so it's just me and Drew now.
Eric with ace king.
And I decide to go for the double flat here. I could 4-bet this, but I thought we were deep enough, and I didn't really want to bloat the pot out of position. Yeah. And if I got jammed on, it would be kind of ugly. Get another great flop, king 6 deuce. And he bets really tiny, $75. And I think, like, obviously king high drive boards, really low frequency raises on those types of boards. But with the flush draw, I think I can go for a check raise here. Not a huge one, just because he's generally going to have a range advantage on this board. But I do have I do have some pretty clear bluffs here, and his c-bet was just so small that I think it would just be a mistake not to ever have raises here. And if I'm going to, like, I think ace king is obviously one of my best raises for value, because I'm never going to have aces. I can't just be doing this with sets for value, so I think ace king obviously going to get called by worse. Sometimes I'm going to value on myself against aces, but, like, you know, that's like on a king high board, I'm just going broke against aces. Like, anyway, so I don't think it's really a huge issue. Turn brings in the second flush draw. So I decided to go for a $300 bet, setting up a river jam on bricks. Seeing how when he makes the call, he only has 1,000 behind. Unfortunately, we get a bad river in the jack of hearts. Not only does that bring in the obvious flush, but if he has a hand like king jack, he just made 2 pair. So really not loving this river at all. Decided to go for, like, obviously I know I'm going to check, but I decided Hollywood for a bit just to make it seem like I have a tough decision here. I would also, like, my checking range is probably protected here. I think I'd sometimes check my sets just because it's a really bad river for my range, or for like, no, not necessarily. It's not that bad of a river for my range, but because I have some flushes as well, but he has a lot of flushes too. So it's just a bad river for my specific hand.
Yeah, I think my man Eric was on check call mode. You think he calls? He's gonna go, absolutely.
And he does check behind, so we do take that down. And he did say afterward that he was very surprised to see me have ace king there. So I think that's part of the benefit of mixing it up and going for some low frequency frequency flats with strong hands like Ace King.
But she's picky about it.
So what's your
Party.
go-to?
All right, this is the last hand from this stream that we're going to go over. I opened Queen 9 off from the cutoff, and it's a very questionable, but I was, you know, feeling myself, obviously.
Pancakes? Oh, wait, I would put
John Party calls from, I believe, the big blind, flop, jack, 8-3. I c-bet, he calls, and I just drill the fucking gutter on the turn. Not sure what they're laughing about, but, I mean, we're having a grand old time.
Jim Belushi is
And, toward the end of this stream, it was a very fun game.
Oh, I see that.
He checks, and obviously with the pretty wet board,
Kicker.
I go for a near pot size bet of 105.
He doesn't have one. Stay trying to bet here, maybe.
A lot of high equity draws and worse hands can obviously call here, so that's what he does.
22 in the pocket.
Can't blame him for continuing on the turn at all. And the river is a very bad one for both of us. It's queen bringing a one-liner to the straight, and now I'm chopping with a lot of hands that will call the turn. But so that's why I go for a small bet. I would definitely do this with some flush draws here, looking to fold out the bottom of his range. A hand like exactly the one he has. In this case, I just happen to have it here. He does end up making the call, though, which I don't think is a bad idea at all. He blocks Ace King. All right, and that's gonna do it. I don't recall the final numbers, but I think I dug myself out of that hole I got myself into at the beginning of the stream, and overall I had a great time. So stay tuned for the next stream recap. It's coming soon.